Welcome to Solid State. I see some new faces here. Who is here for the first time at Solid State? Welcome. Solid State, Alex and I run this meetup. Our goal is to have a place where people can come and talk about what it is like to build hardware and companies around hardware. Things that have an actual physical manifestation. Something that's not just bits on a server somewhere far away. Something that you can hold in your hand. I run a consulting business. I help people build peripherals for iPhones. And when I started out in the Valley, I was kind of like, there are hardware engineers around, but there's no place for them to come and talk, so we started this. We've been running for what?
About a year and
well, almost 2 years.
Yeah,
almost 2 years now. So thank you all for coming here. Tonight, our speaker is Ziv Gillat from iFi, who is going to show us something that you can definitely hold in your hand. Usually I say that we build things that hurt when you drop them on your foot, but Ziv's thing is not quite, well, the camera is going to hurt, but the actual product is too small for that. Ziv Gillat.
Hey guys, by the way, you should probably move to the front. Don't be so shy. You'll hear better, and you'll be cozier. So definitely move to the front. You'll also see my demo a little better, and I think that you'll have more fun. So back. I'll go quickly, and then once we go through the slides, I'll leave time for Q&A. This is my first time giving this talk because I actually made it just for you guys. It's totally special. So if I totally bomb, you'll know that you're my guinea pigs. So I have no idea how long it'll take. I have 17 slides. I'll go quickly, and then we can leave time for Q&A. But now you know that I have 17 slides, so you can actually count down. So just a little background. I used to be an engineer, and then I realized that I wasn't good enough, so I went into sales and marketing and business development. I did 15 years of software design, so mostly writing networking code, TCP/IP, Java, and when I was doing it, I was only doing that focused thing. I think most engineers do one thing well. And that's the reason that I changed, and you'll see why in a second. I used to work at Apple. I was at Apple every year of my college internship years. After college, I went back into Apple. So I worked at Apple for all the CEOs but Steve Jobs, so 92 to 97. Steve Jobs he told others to kill the Newton, and then when Newton was killed, I went to General Magic. And that was my first startup company that I was at. Since then, I've done 6 companies as an employee, and iFi is my first founding company. At iFi, I do business development, I do sales, I own our distribution for businesses in the US. I also help to market the card. I just came back from Japan where we actually launched our newest card. I mentor for companies, for Farmer startups, and for Farmer Institute because I just love sharing what I've learned through the School of Hard Knocks. I don't have an MBA. My MBA is iFi. So any of you guys that need advice ever with startups, definitely hit me up. We're 4 friends. Yuval and I are friends from 8th grade. He's my first friend, actually, since junior high. The 2 other guys are friends of Yuval that I met about 10 years ago. iFi 7 years old, so about 3 years before iFi, I met them. They're totally inseparable. They were first at college, then from college they went and they were TAs. After they were TAs, they bought a house together because it was more prudent to buy a house than to rent. So they actually bought a house in the Bay Area. Started working at SGI. Yuval was the guy who hired them into SGI. He's only 1 year more senior than them. SGI to growth, growth networks got acquired by Cisco, Cisco into Atheros, Atheros into iFi. And I'm the only guy that did other startups. And then we started meeting about 7 years ago to talk about how to fix the photo space, right? So cameras are fun to use, but they become really painful to get stuff out of. So we tried to fix it, and I'll show you in a second how. We started the company, well, so I actually started with them middle of 06, middle of 05. The beginning of 06, so it was the very first day that we were together. I joined them 2 months after they all quit their job. So I quit my day job 2 months after they did because my second child was going to be born and I needed insurance for my wife's C-section. So I only quit after he was born. The 3 other guys started 2 months before me full time. So basically their vesting was 2 months before me. So now you know all the details of life. We started 1/1/06. We had our first angel investor. We raised 12 angels through that year. Yvonne and I raised an angel every month. And if you want me to talk about the angel experience, I totally can. Even though it's 6 years old, it's a little bit different. By April, we had our first packets flying through the iFi card. And by September, we had our beta. It was a paid beta, so $100 per every card that we actually sold through beta. And then by about a year later, we realized beta was broken. The card was totally fine, but the software was really, really horrendous. So we fixed the software throughout the next year, stopped outsourcing to Russia, and started hiring internally here in the US because we had money from our Series A, and launched into the channel Q4 of 07, Amazon, Walmart.com, Costco.com, every possible channel online that's big. And then we hired a guy that's amazing in Japan, and he came to us to show us a really beautiful box. He took our box and made it into a Japanese version of the box. We fell in love with him and basically hired him to run our Japan office. Fast forward 6 years later, today we take on the average of 1 million to 1.5 million photos per day through our servers. We've done 350 million photos last year, photos and videos. And if you want to see what the card does, so basically it's an iFi card. It's like this. And I'll tell you a little bit of the story in a second. This is the card. And it makes any camera wireless, and you put it into your camera, and the whole idea is that everything that you take pictures of goes to your smartphone, iPad, tablet. So I'll show you what it does. It's very simple. I take pictures, then I have fun, and I'll take a picture of the Pro. Okay. And so now what's happening is the card is trying to find Wi-Fi. It can't because I'm not at home. So my iPhone also tries to find Wi-Fi as well. So the iPhone is in my pocket. So the whole idea is that it's made for the mom and the dad who are taking pictures of their kids, they're having fun, and they don't want to worry about anything else but just taking pictures of their kids. There's no reason to screw around with USB cables, card readers, all that stuff. So everything that I've shot you guys just now is already on my iPhone. My wife at home is seeing the photos on our Mac because my iPhone is going over 4G to my Mac back home through our cloud. It's on Facebook, Picasa, Flickr, so watch. If I go into the app, you guys are, so this is you guys right here. In fact, I'll rotate. This could have been also on my Mac, but I thought that it's good to show on an iPhone. Here is our Pro shooter right there. So the whole idea is that I just took pictures and everything is totally seamless. I didn't push any buttons on the camera. I didn't do anything on the iPhone. I just turned the iPhone onto the screen to show you what's happening, and it's just totally seamless. There's nothing else that has to happen. And that was our vision from day one. So that's what it does, and we sell these pretty much everywhere. So now I'll go back to my talk. How did we start the company? We started the company because we realized that in the old days, you used to go to the Walgreens, Costco, Walmart, drop your film off, and within half an hour you had pictures. It was totally easy. Cameras became hard to use. They were super cheap to use. You could take tons of pictures and they're all free, but it was really painful to get stuff out of them. I started having kids, and my wife and I are becoming parents, and we're really having a hard time because it's hard to become parents. My parents are in the East Coast giving us a hard time for not seeing our kids' photos. So that kind of gave me the red light, and I realized that I know how to do it because I shoot weddings and models all the time, and I know obviously how to do the USB cable, but it takes effort to actually do that. Uploading, downloading management takes effort. And how do you minimize that effort so that that chore, which people put off chores, laundry, cooking, you end up putting it off because you want to, you have the energy to activate the chore, and that usually takes time, so you just put it off. Same thing with photo management, same thing with anything else that's a chore. So that was my version. I became a parent, and I realized that it's a chore. Yuval's version is he went with his wife to a wedding in Boston, and they were shooting high-res photos of the other couples. This is before smartphones, before Facebook, of course. And they realized that they actually couldn't see the high-res of the couples they were shooting, and vice versa. So we had two kind of red lights. We started having dinners, breakfast, lunches, coffees, while we still had our day jobs. And really, Baron and Huge are the guys who actually did the hard work. And here is proof. We thought we'll actually start with a USB stick. The whole idea is, you know that if you take a USB stick and you stick it to a PC, the PC is the host, right? So if you take that USB stick and put it onto your camera, each camera has a USB port, right? The problem is if you took a USB stick and put it on the camera, they both want to see a host. So there's no way to actually get the pictures off of the camera onto the USB stick. You can get it from the camera onto a computer. So we wanted to make a USB stick that would just masquerade itself as a PC. So you would stick it to the camera, and now the camera thinks first. You would then drop off a USB stick at Costco, Walgreens, Walmart, and get prints or a CD made for you. But it was read-only, so you couldn't actually get stuff out of it. So that was our patent for trying to get you to go to the store and get your prints. We wanted to make it easy, and we knew that if you actually go to the store, it'll be unlocked. You'll drop off the stick, and then you'll get your prints done. The problem is the VCs thought that 4 engineers couldn't do a USB stick and sell it into retail, and they were probably right. So our idea number 2 was to make the Wi-Fi card. And we didn't think we could actually do it because components that were off the shelf back then we thought drew too much power. But Eugene, who's one of the 2 God engineers that I'm working with, said, I think I can do it. And he went back home, and the next day he came up with this. So this took him 1 day. This is how good he is. Now, what's happening here is this. You have the SD card. This is the flash. So this is the memory. In our case, it was 2 gigs from Samsung back then. This is the controller for the reads and the writes. So every card out there has a controller that does the cameras, reads and writes. This is the radio from a Theros. Op-amp module, because that's the thing that takes the antenna and does the amplification. And the antenna is standing right here throughout the PCB. It's a trace antenna. And so it radiates out. So when you have a camera, and these cameras always have the door on the side or the bottom, the antenna is right here and it radiates out. So even though the card is buried in the camera, the thing that actually radiates is the back of the card. We in fact tuned the antenna to surpass the metal and the plastic that's right here, and your hand. Your hand is made of water, and water kills Wi-Fi. So we actually detuned the antenna to surpass the blockage. So we did that. This chip was designed by Berend for a Theros. So he actually wrote code for his own chip. So he knew that, this exists, of course, but he didn't think he could actually draw little power to be inside the SD spec. The SD spec is 1 watt. But because he designed his own chip, he wrote firmware for his own chip. Theros agreed to support us, and he made the chip do wacky things that weren't meant to be done. And we brought down the power, and he was able to run the entire processing, the entire engine, and all of our patents were running on the cores that are inside the Theros radio. This is the world's most expensive Wi-Fi card. It was about $1.5 grand to make. Mostly because the plastics are molded and it was really hard to make them. Notice how the design is a little bit different. So Huge's design just proved to us that we could fit it onto an SD card. After we actually did the design, we realized, okay, we actually have to separate out the components differently for noise reasons. So in this case, this is the flash, 2 gig flash. This is the controller from Hyperstone. This is the radio there designed, op-amp module, and antenna. This little thick thing over here, this whole antenna is this thickness spanning across. We later found out that what happened was if we cut off 2 millimeters of the antenna, we actually get 5 dB extra. 5 dB is about 10 times more radio power. So we had, I believe, 1,000 of these cards made, and we wanted to make a better experience because we actually got almost 10 times more power by making the antenna shorter. So I went into Home Depot and I bought a drill and actually drilled holes in the card in all these cards to cut the PCB right here. So by cutting it right here, by drilling a hole big enough to break the PCB, I broke the connection right here. But we had a smaller antenna, and now it's 10 times more powerful. For the real card, we actually did the right thing with the design. So that was how we actually...
You drilled 1,000 of them?
Yeah. So it was basically, those things that have a spinning bit in a little table. So I basically had the guides, and I...
Far out.
Yeah. So that was painful, but we had beta. So it wasn't like this. Actually looked more like this, but black. So this is our first card. It was a 2 gig card. If back then there was a thing such as class is the speed of the card, it would be a class 0 card. It was super, super slow. It did about 2 megabytes per second write speed and about 6 to 8 megabits. So you guys know that a megabit is half of a megabyte. So it was very slow on the transfer speed, but it worked. In comparison, the card today that we have is a class 10, but actually it's really fast class 10. It does 33 megabytes per second write speed, and it does 13 megabits per second transfer speed. The big difference, though, is this. And this is one lesson that you guys should try and take away. By having this design, we were single source on 3 vendors. We had Samsung for the flash, we had Atheros for the radio, and we had Hyperstone for the controller. If any of those guys went down or didn't support us, we'd be screwed. So we did this for about 2 years. We sold these cards in the channel, and it was totally fine. But we knew that it's risky. So we replaced this chip with our own X2 chip. That's why it's called X2. It's not just a branding name. It really is a chip that we called X2. Baron and Eugene swore they'll never do hardware again after leaving Cisco and Atheros, but they actually did hardware because they actually did this chip themselves. By having this chip, we can actually take away the burden of the CPU off of the radio. The chip lets us basically switch any radio, any flash, and fix the firmware in the field. So if we find a camera that has a problem, we can actually do updates to the firmware, and now it gets sent to all the cards in the field, but the card knows it's in a certain camera, so it behaves differently. Also, by doing that, we were able to get lower cost on the radio, faster radios. We left Atheros and went to Marvell. Our radio today is, again, off the shelf. It's the same radio that exists in the iPod Touch and the iPhone. And we can swap the flash whenever we want to. Today we use both Samsung and SanDisk flash. SanDisk is our competitor in the retail channels, as well as our friend. In Europe, they actually sell iFi branded SanDisk cards together, and they are the ones that own Europe for us. In the US, it's still our brand. A couple of ways that you can use the iFi card. If I shoot my kids on the weekend, I shoot JPEGs. It goes to my phone. My phone goes to Facebook, Picasa, and Flickr, and my mic back home. If I shoot a model or a wedding, I shoot RAW plus JPEG. the RAW stays on my CF slot, the JPEG goes to my iFi card, and everything goes to my iPad. I check the hair and makeup of the model, done. Super, super easy, but the custom be used for pro uses as well as consumer uses. We target the mom. We actually don't target the pro. I then go into the Mac. I do my stuff in Lightroom, and then I upload into. This is my stuff from shooting the red carpet. SmugMug is one of our favorite sites for family sharing. Zenfolio is what I use for my pro stuff and models, and they're both sites that you can go straight off of the card. So the card can actually go straight off to these sites. But I'm here tonight to actually give you a little bit of a different pitch than just doing hardware. And I'm going to make the case that every one of you guys should find a way to make your company do services from day one. So build an ecosystem and have services, and here's why. From day one, we knew that in order to win the VCs don't like hardware companies. They also don't like retail plays. Retail is very, very hard, and so that's hard. Paired with consumer, paired with hardware, it's a disaster. So we knew that, and we knew also that to monetize the company, we wanted to have services from day one. We actually built an entire system. So it's not just a card, it really is an entire system. Even though you're seeing a card, what you're really seeing is this. You can take pictures, and it goes out of the camera, into your phone, or into Wi-Fi that already exists in your home. We have to work with all of the carriers out there to get our stuff tested. And because they have proxies that have bugs, we have to actually test against them. We can go to either sharing site, but it goes through our servers first. So we've had a cloud since day one. It was not called a cloud back then, it was called a server. And 7 years ago, people didn't like the word server, but it was called a server. Now it's called a cloud. Same thing. From our cloud today, it goes to any of these sharing sites. Google is here because we use Google to geolocate your photos. So as you take pictures, Google and Apple both keep databases of your usage of your Wi-Fi MAC addresses. So as you take a picture, as you use the phone, you're sending Google and Apple the MAC addresses of things that are around you. So they actually build a network of MAC addresses that we actually go and through the API pull. It then goes to a PC. So you can be at home, and your PC can be totally off. It'll go to our cloud. From our cloud, and then so it stays in our cloud. Next time they turn on your PC, wherever it is, it'll come to your PC through our cloud. And that was there since day one. Same thing with going to Picasa, Flickr, Facebook. It's always been our plan to upload to any of those sharing sites because you may want to go to Flickr, Picasa, and Facebook, and I'm there to actually support you. So services are a huge play. We make money from services. Easy Wi-Fi is a way to get into any open hotspot. We pay them, and they're paying us back. Geolocation is also a service, so Google will charge us money for this. Same as Skyhook. We pay them, you're paying us back. iFi View is a storage in the cloud thing. Same thing. It costs us servers, and we charge for the servers. So we've always had services from day one. It was in our business plan, it was in our bid summary, and it's always there. And so I'm going to keep saying the entire talk that if you think about services as your company goal, you'll do much better for many reasons. So building hardware, as you guys know, is hard. Hardware is hard. But building something into retail is even harder. Having it succeed in retail is nearly impossible, and I would do 2 million photos through our servers every day. We have lots of revenue, and yet I'm sure, actually I know, that most people have no idea who we are. So retail is extremely, extremely hard. By the way, that's why we had SanDisk as a partner in Europe. We used to be in Europe for 2 years. We pulled out of Europe. We gave SanDisk full ownership of Europe because they have a massive sales force and they have a better chance of selling in Europe than us, in theory. I'll let you know next year if it's really true, but for now, they're doing well. Building a company, so Flip, by the way, is in my opinion, the only company that I know that really has become a leader in the category. It was a small category. The category of flash camcorders was very small, but Flip was the category leader in the camcorder market. And then it got acquired by Cisco for a nice number, so I would say they actually had tons of success. So build a company from the ground up with a service component. It'll give you a much higher valuation, you'll monetize quicker, and it'll be better for you for so many reasons, and I'll get more into it. If you build a company that's based on a freemium model, freemium, typically, you grow your user base to a large amount. Most of the users are free. Typically, 4% of those users convert into paid. So what happens with that? You got amazing valuations, and well-deserved in my opinion, by Dropbox, Box.net, Evernote. They all have higher valuations than iFi. I can tell you that for sure. Until last year, I know that I had higher revenue than some of these guys, yet I don't have their same valuation, and it's because people have perceived iFi as a hardware company. Even though we've had services that perceived us as a hardware company. So if you talk to a VC will basically take your revenue, times 5 if you're lucky, 10 if you're really lucky, 1 if you're unlucky, and that's your valuation. Versus, you take your total user base for any of these guys, 4% of those users convert, so let's actually look at some numbers. Evernote is totally open about their numbers, so I'll use them as an example. They had, I believe, 50 million users this year. So 4% convert is about 2 million users times $45 per year. That's a lot of revenue. So just having 4% conversion rate, which is the normal standard for conversions, and Box.net and Dropbox have the exact same 4% conversion rate. If you grow a user base to a massive amount, you do get tons of revenue, and that model does work. You can then keep growing it. You grow your business much faster by having freemium. You can give away your stuff for free. Whatever you do, grow your user base quickly, and later on monetize them because you'll have a much higher user base. One more example that iFi has an ecosystem. So I'm a huge believer in services and a huge believer in ecosystems. We have an API, so we actually have an SDK that we can sell to a company like Canon, Nikon. The top 10 guys use it. It's a license fee. These APIs are being put into the camera. So when I actually take pictures with my camera, the camera knows that the iFi card is different than any other card that exists out there. And when I shoot, here's what happens. If the camera guy didn't support iFi, I would have to do what I did 6 years ago, which is to tell customers to go through the menus and change the power settings to never turn off the camera. The cameras by default turn off in 6 seconds. That kills, Nikon cameras by default turn off in 6 seconds. Canon cameras turn off in 2 minutes if they're a point and shoot. But that wouldn't give us enough time to upload. So we actually had a cardboard box with a towel over it, and we actually took a picture of every menu of every camera 6 years ago to show you to go to the pencil menu, go into odometer off, right, and change every setting in every camera. Pain in the ass. So Nikon realized that we were trying to go around them, and we didn't have the best user experience, so they were the first ones to support us. And the Nikon D90 was the first camera that actually had iFi inside. So today what happens is you actually take a picture, there's a menu for us, there's an icon for us. All these cameras have menus for iFi, 85% coverage across the board. So the top 10 OEMs in Japan have firmware in their cameras, across all their cameras. And when you take a picture, the icon animates. You also have menus. Here's the menu for iFi. You go over here. It's hard to see, but if you go if you see over here, you would see the iFi menu, but if I actually took the card out, the menu goes away. So, really important for us as a company to have support for the industry. So we had Nikon was the first camera OEM to support us. Casio followed, then JVC, then Canon, and then all the rest. So, but today we have, like I said, 85% coverage. So every camera that you buy today in the store from every major OEM has us inside. Today, many hardware companies think that going through Kickstarter is a totally awesome idea, and I love Kickstarter. I'm showing you two of my favorite projects that I fund. I mean, this is true. I really did buy the Pebble whenever it gets here. I'm totally excited. But here's the problem. The model works, right? So they didn't have to raise VC money, so totally awesome. They're lucky, and I'm very, very jealous because I actually raised 4 rounds. So we raised overall $50 million. By the way, comparison, Flip raised way more. So Flip succeeded, but they actually raised a lot more than us in terms of funding. But back to Kickstarter. So they've raised $10 million. They wanted to only raise 100,000. So tons of success. Problem is they have no money for R&D, right? All the money, every penny that they got is going towards these watches. So beautiful model, but if they want to succeed in retail, after they've sold these 70,000 watches, they're going to have to find a strategy for retail. It's going to be hard. They did better than Sony and Samsung on this kind of a watch because they actually listen to consumers. So the whole idea with it is beautiful. They listened. They added Bluetooth 4.0. They added waterproofing to the phone. But they actually, so they are doing some things that are correct. They have a network of developers. They have apps for these watches, so you're not actually just buying a watch, you're buying a watch and you're buying experience. If they grow their network, and if they grow their API developer network, and some of these developers will charge you money and pay them a royalty, I think that would be the right thing to do. Because they're not going to have a lot of love from the retailers beyond this 70K. 70K, by the way, $10 million is totally awesome for a company that has 0 product out in the market, but this number is tiny for retail, tiny. Yes?
Does this help you get VC funding easier because it gives you validation?
Sure, but I would definitely not just do a product. Yeah, of course, because they've pre-sold 70,000 watches without having
80.
Sorry?
The number is 80.
80.
Yeah, it's 68,000 backers, but it's 80,000 bought.
Totally awesome. But even 80,000 is a very, very small number for being a successful company in retail. Right? You want to sell millions of devices to get interesting for any CM in China. If you don't do millions, you're going to get tier 2 and tier 3 CMs, and it's going to be a problem. So the model is really cool, but I still think that for this you need a service and ecosystem. Oh, and one more thing that both of all these projects share. I also backed this one up as well because I love coffee. They want to raise 20 grand, they raised 370. The problem by not having any money for R&D is that you can't meet deadlines, you can't get good CMs, you can't hire many engineers, you only have your very small team, because any money that you're spending is money that you actually don't have, because every dollar spent is dollar spent on these machines.
They usually take investment. Usually they get approached by angels or any other VCs, and the only thing is that it's flipped.
Yeah.
They come after them instead of they chasing after. That's the whole
right. Totally. But the problem is you still have the underlying issue of just building hardware. These guys are totally underwater. I speak with them all the time because I love what they're doing and I love coffee. There are 2 Russian engineers. They're super amazing in Chicago, and they're not meeting deadlines because the CMs are screwing them over. The board got screwed over. The PCB had some issues. They had radio and EMI issues. They're going to have the same issues that any company has, except that because they have very, very little money, and they actually have no one else backing them up, it's just these guys. But if they actually went out there And for example, I mean, here's one idea that I pitched to them totally because I love these guys. If you can go to, say, Blue Bottle Coffee or Pete's Coffee, buy beans, ask the barista what is the temperature of the beans, the duration, the temperature, and the pressure. You can then program everything into these machines. You now have the perfect shot of espresso. That effect of networking is totally awesome. You can have a network and have baristas coming in, and you can have consumers getting services. You can have beans shipped to you. These guys have tons of options of getting a service play into this company, or they can just sell machines. If they just sold machines, they will not do well long term. If they got into services, shipping you beans, shipping you ideas on how to make coffee correctly with the right bean, all those ideas of having tons of users engaged with your system give you a much higher valuation and much higher revenue.
It's like inkjet cartridges. You make
Yeah.
more money selling coffee
Yeah.
beans than the actual machine.
Yeah. The printers cost nothing, right? And yeah, exactly. So it's about a service play, it's about recurring revenue, and it's about getting your customers to be engaged with you for the long term. It worked. I mean, we had Baron and Eugene, and they really are amazing rock stars. They can do anything, seriously. I mean, they're amazing. If I didn't have success selling into retail, I would have no company.
But is that the same thing with i5?
No. I sell it everywhere. I sell it on Amazon, Walmart, Target. I can sell it on my own. See, I could have started selling it completely through my own e-commerce website.
But you could have done the same thing with the USB stick. Right?
No. The main play with that USB stick is to have the mass quantity of going into retail, dropping it off, getting the stick, refreshed for you, and getting prints. As a company, we counted on the mass volume. We knew that the fourth use of the stick would pay for the stick. So it was read-only stick, so you actually had to use it 4 times in order to pay, and it was free to you. To get that mass market adoption, we would have to go through retail. i5 started in retail only online, and then we grew up. We went into small retail, so Wolf Camera, Ritz Camera, so tier 2 and tier 3. Then we went into big retail.
Just curious, what are the ideas you killed very early?
That was it. The USB thing was the thing that we killed. It's patented, and it's granted. So one day we can do it, but we just don't care for it. That was it. We had a lot of ideas about the company's business model, and we ended up doing the service and the card, but the USB stick was the very first thing. Yeah.
So you mentioned that when people go on Kickstarter and things like place and somehow get a certain sum of money to build the hardware, and I think I absolutely agree with you that all that money is going to go into producing the product and nothing else. But it seems to me that in order to get these products into the hands of retailers and distribute it and be able to offer a service like that, the infrastructure for creating that it seems to me incredibly expensive. Can you comment on
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
That is?
You heard of Corky?
I'm sorry, what?
You heard of Corky?
Corky.
Corky. Check out Corky. Corky is a superset of Kickstarter. Corky.com. It's spelled like Q-U-I-R-K-Y. But by the way, both companies, both Corky and Kickstarter, are both in New York, which is kind of interesting. Corky lets you do the entire machine. So they call the machine the design, the testing, the manufacturing, the production, the distribution. Everything is this big machine, and they help you with everything. They even sell it for you. So they have categories of home furnishings, home gadgets, electronics. So they help you with everything, even with retail, and then they actually take a cut. So there are companies out there that do this, and I love what Corky and Kickstarter are doing. It's totally awesome. If you didn't do that, if you want to go into mass retail, I believe that what we did was the correct approach. You start with only online, only Amazon, for example, because that's the most important retail anyway. Don't worry about doing your own e-commerce because you won't get any traction. It's just silly. And if you do have your own e-commerce and you have Amazon, you'll have 5% sales on your own site versus Amazon. So it's just there's no issue. I mean, there's no reason to do that. You don't have inventory issues yet because you only ship to Amazon what you need. You can go direct or go through distribution. After you have some success with the online channels, so do Amazon, do Buy.com, do Walmart, Costco, all those guys feed after distribution, then go into retail. And then it gets expensive because then you have to fulfill the channel, you have to have a sales force. We have 2 guys doing sales only, so it's just Mark, who came from Flip. So when Flip got acquired by Cisco, we took Mark over to us. So he is our VP of sales, and it's totally amazing. Mark is my boss on the sales side. The biz dev side, I report to you, Val, who's my co-founder and CEO. So we only have 2 guys, but we have distribution selling for us as well, a little bit. Most of the sales is being done by Mark and I. Expensive in terms of having CM, operations, logistics. You gotta have support. Support is very expensive. We actually have our support outsourced, so we have 60 employees at iFi full-time, but we have about 30 for support, outsourced in Baltimore, Ireland, Japan, and that's it. Oh, and in Australia. It's expensive. Doing anything with retail and consumers is expensive.
So your first move was just going to Amazon, and then they would just send you a manifest of orders, and then you would ship them out?
No. Amazon does no. It's opposite. Amazon takes the orders, and they tell the distributor to do pick, pack, and ship. So if you take Amazon direct, they do everything for you. But if you're small, they probably won't take you on direct. You go through distribution. Amazon sends an EDI order to Ingram Micro or D&H or Winnet. Those are the top 3 guys in the US that do distribution. And those guys are the buck movers. So those guys have our stuff in their warehouses on consignment, or they buy it, and then they ship it. And then if you get stuff from Amazon, and it says Amazon on the box, it still came from Ingram Micro.
Okay.
Yeah, so you sell...
Well, just to add to that, if you're really tiny, you can also check out Fulfill by Amazon. There you can actually ship Amazon from your home.
So that means...
Fulfill by Amazon.
Right, so when you're fulfilled by Amazon, Amazon is still doing everything for you, which means that you actually have to call an Amazon, so you actually have to fly out to Seattle and pitch them on the idea, and they may take you or not.
I don't think so.
Well, so basically, it's a third-party guy. So when you say fulfilled by Amazon, it's not Amazon, it's a third-party company that's doing the fulfillment for Amazon. And so, for example, I sell to all the guys in New York, so B&H, J&R, Adorama. One of those guys is one of the guys who ships for Amazon. So it'll say fulfilled by Amazon, but it's not Amazon. It's the actual company that does it.
That is not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I don't think you need to fly to Seattle and pitch them. I think you can do the web, agree to get an extra website, and then give you an address. You put all your stuff in a box, send it to the address.
Yeah.
Whether that facility is on Amazon, all that, I don't care.
Got it. Yeah. So if you do that, so anybody can sell on Amazon for distribution. The problem is you won't get any traction in any marketing. So I actually flew to Seattle. I pitched Amazon. They took me in. By taking me in, it means that now I get skewed up with the card category, the cameras. If you don't get Amazon to support you, what happens is they just basically do a feed off of the EDI from Ingram Micro, D&H, and Winnet. So anybody who puts stuff into distribution says they can sell on Amazon. The problem is you won't be shown unless you search for that item. And if you search for a memory card, you won't show up unless they do the right thing.
Programs or things can be different from what you.
Yeah.
I've had your card for a while. I think about the time you went to 4 gig, I got a clearance on Whoop.com on the 2 gig card. But more recently, my Android phone just does all this stuff for me.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a difference in your marketplace, or are camera sales about what camera sales always were?
Sure. So point and shoots are declining, or point and shoots are flat in the US. DSLRs are hugely increasing, and Micro Four Thirds are even crazier increasing, but that's a new category and it's just 2 years old. What's happening in the US is that you have carriers, the phones are being owned by carriers, so you actually have either really large data plans or you have no limits. Even if you have a limit, it's 5 gig. So here in the US, the culture is to take a picture with your smartphone, and upload it into Instagram, Facebook, totally awesome. If you go into India, China, Latin America, it's 5% carrier owned, 95% cowboy land, meaning it's a prepaid phone. And so now what's happening is you can't actually use the phone to upload. So there, camera sales are still increasing. I would say they're going to decline at one point. I'll tell you for us what's happening. We're seeing that out of every iFi account, 85% of iFi accounts, you know how your card is tied to an account? 85% of iFi accounts have more than one device on the account, meaning there's iFi card plus the iOS app or the Android app. They either go from the card to the phone, or they don't care about the card and they just use the phone. So yes, I definitely see an increase of phone usage, and I'll hint that you should watch what's happening next week with iFi's announcements. Just please don't tweet it or blog about it.
Have you
Don't tweet it.
Don't tweet it.
Does that mean tweeted?
Micro SD?
Does that mean
No reason to. Micro SD is basically only being used for phones, and phones already have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. Yeah, no reason to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about the continuing issues. I mean, for most cameras, it's okay, but if your high-end SLRs have magnesium cases, does that block your signal?
So they have many what?
Magnesium cases?
Oh, yes. So
Drill holes in you?
it's magnesium. So this whole thing can be magnesium. It can be plastic. It depends. But the card is right here. The antenna is right here. So the card is buried inside the body, and there's a card reader inside, and it's all metal cased. It's all metal inside. But the antenna is right here, and it radiates out. So if I do this, it will block some of the range because my hand is made of water, and water blocks most of the range. But because we've detuned the antenna to a different frequency, my hand blocks it, but not completely. So what that means is this: if I take a picture and it starts to upload, Wi-Fi really is voodoo magic. It may work well, it may totally suck. Your router can be a Linksys router, which is totally amazing. It can be something else, which is really, really old, and it may be really, really bad. Walls that are cement block Wi-Fi, water blocks Wi-Fi, and many things block Wi-Fi. So your mileage may totally vary. You may have a camera that's made of plastic, and the card slot is right here, and you may get amazing coverage. You may be on channel 1 or channel 11, because most routers come on channel 6. Channel 6 is the median of the Wi-Fi spectrum. Channel 6 for us actually is not very good. So we actually tune the cards to channel 1 or 11. But the router at home may be already channel 6. So it means that we actually have to connect on channel 6. So if you actually change your router to channel 1 or 11, you'll get about twice the range. So Wi-Fi is voodoo magic. It really depends on if you have MIMO, for example. So we only have one antenna. If we had, we could put 4 antennas in here and do MIMO, get 4 times more range, 4 times more transfer rate, because MIMO, so N, when you do 11N, the reason that you can get 300 megabits per second is because you have 10 antennas. We only get 12 because we only have 1 antenna.
But if the whole case is magnesium, then you're probably not going to get any signal at all.
No. So
but how fancy
no, but look, my camera is magnesium. This is a pro camera. The entire camera is made of metal. The card is right here.
But is the cover always plastic in your chair?
Yeah, the cover is always plastic, and there's metal hinges right here.
Right.
But the cover is always plastic.
Right. So that's your. So have you ever kind of wanted to have a metal?
Yes.
A metal door?
Absolutely. The Leica M8, which costs $9,000, is not only metal. They also have a metal plate on the bottom, so it's horrible for us. But it's $9,000, and so there are 10 cameras sold per year. I just don't care, right? I mean, it really is an amazing camera, and if someone wants to buy me one, I'll take it. But you will get the range, but you'll have to be right next to the router to get the range, and it sucks. But that's the only camera that I know of that has a metal plate and a metal cover, and it's just crazy. Everything else, even the 5D Mark III, everything today from Canon and Nikon, in fact, not only are they plastic, because they have i5 firmware inside, they work with us on the design of the camera, of the opening of the camera, right? Because they want the consumer to have a good experience. So, as I mentioned, all of these camera guys, because they have 85% of all of their cameras made with i5 firmware inside, they test the i5 card in the factory. And they have our design spec. And even though we're a small company in the Bay Area, we actually are relevant to them because they want to give the user a really good experience with Wi-Fi and services. So they change their design and work with us on getting the card to radiate better.
Is there any of these cameras going to integrate this?
Wi-Fi? Yeah. So there was always Wi-Fi in cameras. Even when we started the company, there was the Kodak EasyShare 1. There were 5 cameras when we started the company in 2006. Today there are 15 cameras that have Wi-Fi built in. The OEMs will always compete with us on Wi-Fi because they'll try because they want to do it, but they'll always support us in all of their models because they have zero cost. So to add Wi-Fi to a camera costs about $25 for the Wi-Fi chip and antenna and everything else. It has cost, it has complexity, and the guys in Japan are amazing at doing cameras, and they're not very good at doing Wi-Fi and services. We can't make cameras, but we know how to do Wi-Fi and services. So there'll always be Wi-Fi cameras, great, and there'll be us. Sorry.
Yeah, so can you shed more light about the pricing, like how you do the pricing? And the second thing you said about funding, so give us more like behind the scene, or you said that you got funded 50, you said 40 or 30?
We raised 4 rounds of funding. You raise every 18 months, and we raised over the time of the last 6 years, we've raised about $50 million of funding.
And you had to do it in order to reach the scale, and now, I mean, your plans are what?
Maybe. Okay, so the last round that we did was $20 million from Docomo. Docomo is the #1 carrier in Japan. You can sort of see where I'm going with this. We've always loved carriers, and carriers are way bigger as a retailer than any other retailer in the world. So we're doing cloud stuff with carriers. The carriers want to have us help them with doing storage and services because they have no idea how to do it. In terms of, so that's all I can say on that because it's not announced yet. In terms of pricing, we started the card at $99. Actually, sorry, when we first started, it was $150. We were way more expensive than any other SD card in the market of that size. So for a 2 gig card, $150 was already even that expensive. The nice thing for us is that as flash goes down, every card in the market goes down as well in price, and we get to have more margin because we actually keep our prices totally constant. So today we have 40, 60, 80, and 100. We have 4 products in the US. It's different in Japan. The yen is stronger, so it costs more in Japan. We have the cheapest card for $39 at Walmart and Target. We don't have the Pro at Target and Walmart. There's just no point. At Best Buy, we'll have all the cards. At B&H, J&R, Dorama, we have all the cards. And we chose those prices. If you want to know a little bit of pricing psychology, there's this thing called battery price, and there's the husband and wife price. So the battery price is anything below $99. So you can go to a Fry's Electronics or Best Buy, buy a product, not call your spouse, and you'll be okay. Anything above $99 means you got to call in and ask your wife or your husband if it's okay to actually buy that product. Notice how Sony, PlayStation, Nintendo, Wii, all those things that exist that cost more than $100 have either tennis rackets, so the wife can say, or the husband can say, "Hey, honey, look, it actually plays tennis," and we can actually get into sports. The Sony devices have a DVD and Blu-ray player, so the husband can call the wife and say, "Hey, honey, actually it plays DVDs. Totally awesome." It's totally intentional, and it's for that reason. So that's price psychology, and that's how it is. It's retail.
Most of what you're talking about tonight is about cameras. Can you talk about any other use cases?
For the iFi card?
And how you go about deciding?
Yeah.
I'm sure there are hundreds of use cases, and you have to pick some.
Yeah, so we actually chose cameras because we are a consumer company and we want to have support only around cameras. The card can upload anything. If you put a Word or Excel file on the card, it will not upload because we block everything that is not .jpg, .mov, .mp4. We block by extension. If you took that Word file and you reworded it to .jpg, it'll upload. We also take everything out of the DSIM folder. Every camera in the world writes into DSIM. If you took stuff into DSIM, it would upload as a JPEG. We get questions from medical devices all the time. People want to have a device that actually is being carried on the patient. Say it's a heart pacemaker data thing. It's being carried by the person. It collects data, and you can send the stuff to a phone or to the provider. I get questions all the time about the devices that are made for cars. The problem is, if I make a card that is not just made for photos, now I gotta have support. And the support has to be scaled up much more for all those companies. And so far, I've said, if you wanna buy at least 100,000 cards, that's my pitch. 100,000 cards, I'll change the firmware for you. Because that means that I can actually put a support guide on that thing. I can have my co-founders change the firmware, unblock one of the extensions, and it's done. One company, for example, that has done that is Visioneer. So Visioneer and Xerox. So Visioneer makes scanners for Xerox PARC. They're called Mobility, and Mobility is a scanner. It's a very powered scanner. So the idea is you can take scans with the scanner, and it goes to your phone or it goes to your PC. For them, I opened up PDF support. So they want PDF support, and I gave them PDF support because it was a large deal for us. So usually we say no.
Is that only for hardware that goes to them, or is that?
Yeah, that card is called the Visioneer iFi Xerox card. It looks different sticker-wise, different software. They've written their own clients for Android and iOS, even though they didn't have to because we actually supported PDF in our apps for them as well. But our apps kind of suck in PDF, so we gave them the PDF support, and they actually rewrote the apps to have their own. So the card can do a lot, but we chose to limit it to just photos.
So that brings to the point. A lot of times people say that one of the best things to do is learn when to say no, and do so regularly and frequently. What process do you guys do in order to figure out when to say no, and when do you give the elusive yes?
Yeah, so we're small. Even though we're 60 people, we were 4, and we were 15, 35. It's time spent in ROI. We only have a few engineers. I would say out of 60 people, 40 are engineers. But if I have an engineer that's doing the iOS development for our thing that's coming out next week, he can't do any work on, the medical device stuff, for example. So it's just, we figure out the numbers and the volume. We ask for projections. We figure out how much engineering it is on our end. We figure out if it'll help us in terms of valuation and the company and the growth. The thing with Docomo was huge for us. We knew that we wanted to go into carriers. We knew that we first started with SoftBank, which is the number 3 guy in Japan, then KDDI, then Docomo. So we have full coverage of all carriers in Japan, and you actually buy an Android phone, and the Android phone comes with an iFi card, and it's a different process to set up than in the US. You scan a QR code, and it's done. There's no PC involved whatsoever. And they sell tons of cards for us. So for them, we did the engineering, we did the mobile first activation, which only is in Japan today. Different packaging, different software, it's in Japanese, and they gave us the investment. So, yeah, I say no. I say mostly no's. As a biz dev guy, it's hard, but I gotta say mostly no's than yeses.
What's the rough ratio that you say between no's and yeses?
I would say 10-1 no's to yeses. And I know that I'm leaving tons of money on the table, but I'm small. If I was huge, Yeah.
Yeah. Going back to the first years of your let's say endeavor, how important was it to have patents and to invest in patenting? And how much did you spend in patenting and fighting for your patents?
Okay, so I personally don't know much about it because I never did any of our patent work. My co-founders did. We filed the provisional almost on day one. We had an IP lawyer that was amazing. 5, I believe, have been granted. 5 more are still pending, but once the first one grants, the other ones are much quicker. We filed only in the US, Europe, and Japan. So today, after 7 years, we have our first copycat clone in China. Okay, I'm not going to say anything about that because they can do their own thing. If they try to sell in the US, I can go after them. I'm not saying that I won't. Sorry, that I will. I can't talk too much about that because if I say anything about it, it sets precedence. All I can say is that we've had the SDA Association tries to put out a standard every year for SD. A year ago, they put out a standard for Wi-Fi on a card, but we actually have the IP for Wi-Fi on a card, and it's granted. So we actually fought that, and we had the standard taken back. Now the standard is being redone with us in the loop, and it's being done correctly. I can definitely tell you that our CFO spends time on patent issues. I'm sure that he spends a portion of his time every day on the kind of stuff. We've been sued for having Wi-Fi in a device, but because we use off-the-shelf components, we get indemnified by Marvell or Atheros or Broadcom or anybody else. So you'll always have patent issues. My theory is that when you start a company, it's hard. When you succeed, it's still hard because you get sued. So it's always hard. It's always hard. I mean, we've been sued for the silliest things. One of the lawsuits that we've been sued for, it was a patent filed in France, because I don't think that it would actually get granted in the US, for getting images out of a camera. Seems pretty abstract and vague, but it was actually granted. So that patent troll sued us and 10 camera guys, all those 10 camera guys behind me. And we started a defense team, and all of us are doing it together. And it kind of went away, but I'm sure that one day it'll come back. So you always get sued, and I have no, yeah, that's how it is, it sucks. Yeah.
Where did you find your first set of users, and was it different than what you thought it was going to be?
So the beta, for example,
yeah.
We just had one blog post. Yeah, we had 2 big bloggers, Laughing Squid, and back then Scoble was really, really huge. He's still big, but he was still at Microsoft. So Scoble and Laughing Squid did the 2 blog postings for us. We pre-announced it was a mistake. We immediately had 10,000 people wanting to actually buy the card, and we only had 1,000 cards made. So I randomly chose 1,000 from an Excel sheet. After that, going into retail, Amazon helps you build momentum. We had PR. We spend on the average, today we spend anywhere from 25K to 75K per month on PR. I would say most of our marketing budget goes to PR. So it's constant marketing. Magazines, TV, radio shows, blogs, Twitter, Facebook, it's all one big umbrella of marketing. It's constant. Sorry? Of course, meetups.
What are kind of 3 rookie mistakes that you give us guidance to avoid? Like, do not do this.
Oh, sure. 3 mistakes. First mistake, never pre-announce. We pre-announced.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so we weren't ready. So in April, after we had the first beta, the first alpha cards, we were totally excited. Baron could pass traffic through the card. We're 4 geeks in a really disgusting office in SFO, and we were really happy. So we called the first blogger, and we called Laughing Squid, and he came by. Sorry, that was Scoble. That was April. So Scoble wrote so that was a mistake. It's a mistake to pre-announce, because if you pre-announce something and you're not ready, we definitely weren't ready. It was just a card that had nothing on it, and you had no software, and it was totally it was a year and a half away from being ready. If you pre-announce your company, you're not newsworthy anymore. So no one will ever take you as a tier 1 media coverage. In our case, they took us because we stayed quiet for a year and a half, and we cleaned up the blogosphere, and our PR firm helped us to manage that script that was, we had no idea that before you start a PR firm, you never pre-announce. So definitely don't pre-announce. Create a launch event, spend money on a launch event, and do it right. I would say that was our mistake. Let's see, one more mistake that I would say that's a rookie mistake. I managed, so notice how I said that I stopped doing engineering. I was the guy that managed the engineers in Russia for the first year and a half. I think that was a mistake. Baird and Eugene are the true gods of engineering, but because they were so busy, I offered to manage because I used to manage engineers. So that's fine, but I think that our software was so bad, and if it was being managed by somebody better than me, I think it would be awesome. So hire a serious engineer or program manager and do it right. Don't just take the first chance that you can. I would say number 3, that we did make a mistake, but we could have. Don't ever take money from a player that has some strategy value to you. For example, we could have taken money from Atheros. Atheros offered to fund us. If we would have had funding from Atheros, I would have not been able to switch to Marvell. So many engineers and many founders that I meet see the money as attractive, and they take the money, even though it comes from a big company. Don't ever do that. Take money from angels and VCs, because their money has no baggage. And later on, as you succeed and as you have traction, then do what we did, which is take money from the carrier, because we wanted to get the business of the carrier, but by now we were 6 years old. We had traction. So take money from a company that has some value to you, that has a strategy, much, much, much later. I think many people that I meet take money too early from a company.
Just to follow up on that first point that you made, because a lot of people here have done Kickstarters or want to do Kickstarters. Does that count as a pre-release in that vein for you, or do you see that as a different animal?
No, it's different. You've pretty much pre-sold. You're going to, you're going to have to still do PR. You're not going to get any coverage, PR-wise. So you've pre-announced. You're going to get 0 traction from any of the tier 1 media guys. You'll get to go into retail because retailers could be very excited about what you're doing, but you'll never get a Gizmodo, TechCrunch, or Engadget to write about you now that you're on Amazon. They'll write about you that you're here and you're super cool on Kickstarter. And in fact, they helped Pebble get, because actually Pebble was on Gizmodo. I'll bet you that Gizmodo will never write about it again when it hits Amazon, if it ever does. Because now it's just not, who cares? It's a watch and it already works. Going from Kickstarter to Amazon is not newsworthy. But being a company that's being launched into space on Amazon for the first time, that's newsworthy. So pros and cons.
So you have a Wi-Fi chip and an antenna on this SD card. FCC certificates, stuff of that sort.
You have to.
Regulatory compliance testing.
Yeah. So here's the FCC ID. Here's the IC for Japan, CE mark, because we are what's called an intentional radiator. So we have to get FCC. We have to get certified in every region. And if we want to sell, for example, we just started in Hong Kong a few weeks ago. We have to do every region. It's easier. So once you have FCC and CE mark, it's easier because, for example, for Australia, CTIC. All you gotta do for CTIC is show them your CE mark documents, and you get CTIC.
So did you hire regulatory compliance?
Yeah. It's a lab. There's a lab in Yosemite. It's out in the middle of
Wrong
nowhere.
question. Did you hire, you're answering, did you hire a lab to do it? I asked, did you hire an engineer into your company to do regulatory compliance?
No. Eugene, my co-founder, worked with the lab.
And what about reliability testing?
Okay, great question, because I believe that we are the only company that has this problem. If you write a software product, or if you do hardware, typically your QA matrix is actually pretty small. If you do software for iOS, you're testing an iPhone 5, iPhone 4, and you're testing against iOS. The iPhone card has to be QA'd against routers, cameras, carriers, gateways, firewalls on PCs, firewalls on the Mac. So our QA matrix is ridiculous. We have an amazing room with routers that are completely automated. We scrape the HTML pages of every router out there, and we automate every router family possibly. We buy tons of cameras. Yes?
Testing. You have a piece of hardware there.
Yeah.
By itself, is it reliable?
No. So what answered you was totally correct.
Okay,
because
it could break in transit. It could break.
No. It's packaged in a retail box that Best Buy tells us how to design. So once the card leaves the factory, it's packaged correctly. That's not a problem. I actually did ask you correctly because the card behaves differently in a Nikon camera, a Canon camera, behaves differently against a different router. That's reliability. To the consumer, that's reliability. The card itself doesn't break, and if you actually break it, if you actually take it and break it, of course it'll break. But what happens usually to consumers is the setup didn't work because the router wasn't working because we actually haven't tested that router, or they do some funky stuff on N or G or B. It's completely consumer-based, and it's not at all what you're saying. In terms of having the actual hardware itself, the firmware that's in it, I'm sure has bugs. That's why we fix the firmware all the time. The hardware chips, I'm sure have bugs, but they're in all these phones every day, so they're being used. So no, it's actually the consumer testing.
Sort of related question. Can you talk about returns, warranty, service, that sort of thing?
Sure.
Is that a big deal?
No, it's we have a 5% return rate, which is totally standard for the industry. Costco is higher. I think Costco for us is 7%. Costco is always higher for anybody because you have infinite policies for returns at Costco. It's an issue, but it's how it is, and you always bundle that into your BOM. Support handles all the returns. We say 1 year, but we're actually really cool about it because even you buy the card in Singapore, which is not supported by iFi. If you call our support, we'll send you a new card if we find that it's broken. So we're actually pretty cool about that, even though we don't have to be.
So it's not a major expense for you, returns and warranty?
It's built into the price of the product. Engineering, support, R&D, everything is built, shipping, manufacturing, it's all built into the product.
In the past life, I've dealt with Ingram Micro, and they were an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
Are there any alternatives to working around them, or are you still stuck with working through multi-tier distribution like that?
What do you do? I mean,
no, I'm just curious.
Ingram Micro is the #1 disti still in the US. D&H is #2. They have a large sales force, and they claim to do sales. And at the end of the day, I'm the one who's doing the sales. They're beautiful to work with because they do all of the pick, pack, and ship for us, and everything is being done by them. I would wish they actually would do more sales for me, and they don't. But no, they're amazing to work with because we've sold into them. They picked to work with us. We picked to work with them. It's a two-way street. So my whole job is managing disti. So I can't say that I hate it. I actually love it. I just wish that they actually did more work on the sales. They have a huge sales force, and I don't see it doing much for me personally.
Did you approach them, or did you have the retailers approach them to approach you?
No, we approached them. When we were really, really small, Ingram wouldn't take us. Right. And we didn't even bother to actually ask Ingram to take us. So we went through a third-tier guy that goes into Ingram, And then after we became big, we left that third guy and went into Ingram, and then we signed on D&H. We only have Ingram, D&H, and Win It because I believe that having too many disties is actually bad for your business. I have the exact same price going into both of those disties. They're totally equal. If you're a Newegg or Buy.com, you want to buy from D&H or Ingram, totally cool, up to you. I will not play favorites. And my biggest complaint is they actually don't do enough sales for us.
Z, what's big? The volume.
I can't talk about it. So that's the cool thing about being private. You can just say, I'm totally huge, but really, or the only thing that we say is 1 to 1.5 million followers per day through users, 2.5x growth year over year on sales. If we didn't do well, we would get kicked out of retail, and it's been 6 years for us. So if you're off by 1 quarter, we kick you out. If you miss 2% of your inventory, you're out. It's been 6 years. Yeah.
You spoke earlier, you alluded to contract manufacturers. Has that been...
CMs, yeah.
Yeah, has that been a big headache for you in terms of...
We've moved 3 times. When we were tiny, we were in Fremont. After Fremont, we went into somebody else in Fremont, but bigger, much bigger. Yeah. And then after that, we went into Thailand. I think the next step is China. But Thailand is fine, is totally fine for us. So we have parts are made in China. The final assembly is done in Thailand. The final pick, pack, and ship is being done by Ingram Micro, but it goes through a different house here in the US that does the packaging for us, the shipping, the testing of the card in the reader, the programming of the firmware can be done in Thailand or here. We have an operations guy that manages that entire thing. He came from SanDisk, so he's totally awesome. He knows his stuff. I think that for guys that are on Kickstarter, they're getting hurt because they have no operations guy and they have no experience. And when they order a part, the CM will change the part under them and they have no idea. We actually have an amazing operations guy who knows his stuff. So you got to have an operations guy.
When you first started, when you were revving your chip, were you doing FPGAs or custom ASICs?
No, neither.
Neither.
No, because remember, these completely off-the-shelf parts. Totally off-the-shelf parts.
It was, okay.
So everything's off the shelf. We wrote firmware inside the Dragon at the beginning for the Theros chip. Later on, as we had our X2 chip, no FPGA at all. Eugene and Aaron are just really, really good. So we just did the design. First tape out, it worked for the X2 chip.
Real silicon.
Yeah. Bear and Eugene, like I said, I mean, my hat's off to them.
Hi, so 2 questions. What is your international strategy? I'm sure after you gain traction, especially in the early stage, there will be tons of international distributors contact you, and some of them might be 18 years old. So how do you qualify them?
So by the way, most of the no's that I've said before when you asked me about this dev are too distant. So yes, I get calls all the time from distributors, and we say no all the time for the following reason. It's really hard to take a company to a new region because you can't just sell. You gotta do support in that language, logistics, reverse logistics, PR, marketing, sales. Our servers have to be in China, for example, if you want to sell in China. So I believe that it's way better to just grow locally, start small, grow your base really, really well in the US. So if you're in the US first, start in the US, learn from making mistakes in the US, then grow to one more region. So for us, it was US first, then Canada. Canada is tiny for any company. Canada is 10% of most companies' sales. For us, it's even smaller. So the effort to go to Canada was very, very low because it's just French and English. Then Europe. Then we went to Japan because it was really important for us to be next to the Japanese OEMs. Australia is a very, very small region, but they're early adopters and they have tons of money. And they love photo. So Australia is a great area to go to after you've already grown everywhere else. And next for us is Hong Kong. We've done that 2 weeks ago. Next will be Korea, Taiwan, China. For us, also, we cared about broadband deployment, Wi-Fi deployment, smartphone deployment. So I'm not going yet after India. I'm not going yet after Latin America, even though I could go to more after some areas in Latin America because they do have nice growth. It depends for us on where we think most of the users are going to be using it with the infrastructure that exists. And I believe that next we'll do Latin America. China is scary, so I'm not going to do China yet. I may do it with a partner. Korea, Taiwan, I'll do next for sure.
Can you find international distributor that can handle the whole service, fulfillment, and
in every region? So we always go through distribution. Everyone says, please take us direct. We always say no, because if I take them direct, it means that now I have to manage more accounts directly, and if they don't pay me, I'm kind of screwed. If I go through Disty, if they don't pay, I won't ship product. So I also control them through distribution. So in every region that we go to, we start distribution. We find the best Disty that we actually love in that region, and we drove that business through distribution. Yeah.
Last question, and then we're going to break the circulate.
Okay, doing your manufacturing in Thailand, did the floods last year affect?
No, not at all. We're actually on stilts. Yeah, I mean, the factory is seriously on stilts. Nikon and Canon, I think that what happened to the photo industry is kind of sad. As Apple and Google and Samsung and HTC kept innovating on smartphones, Nikon, Canon, and Sony got really, really hurt. And so they had to rebuild the factories, and then they had to readjust to having no manufacturing plants for about a year. So while they were being hurt, and while they could manufacture and keep current with the newest trends of cameras, Apple, Samsung, Google, HTC kept innovating. So smartphones kept going like this while cameras couldn't keep up. Today, they're still of the mentality of Japanese to take less risks and do. They can't do as much innovation as I wish that they did, so they're not adjusting as quickly as they should to the smartphone the market. But both Thailand and Japan really, really hurt the photo industry. First Japan, then Thailand.
Okay, so at this point, we're going to close things up as far as the speaking, but people here, feel free to mingle. One of the things I always say is if you have not met 2 or 3 interesting people when you're here that you hadn't met before, then you didn't do solid state right. On top of that, just as a note, this is going to be the last time we're at this location. Ground floor has been sold, is my understanding. And so we will not be here next time. We don't know yet exactly where it's going to be. It might be back at the dojo, might be one of the other places we've been. If you have a recommendation, let us know.
Dojo moved too, didn't it?
Yes, they did. So we'll see how that turns out. But I want to thank Ziv